Welcome to another episode of the Close.io Women in Sales series. In this episode, we are talking about the embodiment of selling with noble purpose. We talk about how sales is about building trust so that you can help people. There is a huge service component in sales that, if you keep that purpose in mind, is going to help you through the grind that sales can be at times, especially if you're a BDR. And there's a shout out for all of you BDRs out there. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get to it. Hi, everyone. This is Rebecca at Close.io, bringing you our interview series featuring women in sales, where we find out how they grow and thrive both personally and professionally. In this episode, I'm speaking with Shikha Bindra.
Hi, everyone. I am a business development manager here at Vidyard, so I'm super excited to be here on this podcast. Vidyard is a video platform for businesses. We help companies use video across their entire company, whether it's through marketing, through sales, internal communications, and support. Super important technology, especially because a lot of what we're doing is moving to video. So helping businesses support that to be able to understand who's watching, leads that they generate, and the ROI from video is what we focus on.
Yep. I love the platform, and also very proud to just note that Vidyard is a Canadian company, right? You guys
yes, we are.
Woohoo! Shikha is the general manager of the Enterprise Sales Forum Toronto chapter. She's been an avid community volunteer at several different organizations, including working on causes such as children, education, and health. Prior to Vidyard, Shikha worked as a direct support professional at the Kitchener-Waterloo Habilitation, providing daily emotional, behavioral, and practical support. She graduated from Wilfrid Laurier University with a Bachelor of Science, Psychology with Biology minor. So you mentioned that a lot of people find your science background interesting, and given that you work in sales, so how did you actually get into sales?
That's a really good question. A lot of people find it interesting because people don't really see the correlation when they first see, oh, she's a bio and psych student that moved into software sales. But it's like really understanding the mind and understanding people and understanding the body. So being able to pick up on cues that I learned in school, like reading people, being able to understand their body language, be able to understand what makes people tick, their motivation, behaviors, things like that really helps me now. And I can get into that a little later. But I got into sales actually by fluke. I feel like a lot of people do, but I hope the purpose of one of the purposes of this podcast is to help people get into sales on purpose versus a fluke. But
absolutely,
for me, it was either a choice between law school or getting into the workforce. And getting into the workforce for me, yes, I was a direct support professional, and what that means is I was a support worker for people who have special needs and developmental disabilities. So I was working with them every single weekend throughout university. But it was a great and rewarding job. But for me, it was so stable that it was like every single weekend I knew exactly what I was doing at any given time. So Rebecca, if you were to ask me, Shikha, what are you doing Saturday at 3:35 p.m. in the afternoon? I could tell you every single Saturday that I was working what I was going to be doing. And it wasn't because it was in my calendar. It was just a routine that we had to follow every single day. And it was the same thing every single day. So for me, yes, it's a routine that's important for the folks that I support. But for me, being where I was, I didn't want something so steady. So what's something that's not steady and not very stable in terms of just like your day and you're always on the go? Well, joining a startup. So with the background I had, I talked to a lot of people and they recommended going into sales. I have an uncle who is married to a lawyer, and he actually gave me some really good advice because he's in software sales, and he's like, you should look into it. It's a great profession. Not only do you make a lot of money, but you learn a lot. You interact with a bunch of different parts of the organization, and you get to build a network outside of, who you're working with as customers. Like you get to mingle, and there's a big community out there that'll help you grow. And it's a good starting point too, if you want to move into other aspects of the business. So here I was trying to see if I was going to get into law school or if I need to start applying for jobs as plan B. So I came across Vidyard, who had raised their Series B at that point. And I saw their SDR posting, the sales development representative posting. It aligned with what I wanted to do and what I wanted to learn from a career in sales after I did some more exploration. And I applied. And then at one point, I was just sitting there with the offer for law school and the offer for SDR. And I took the SDR role. And it was because of who I was going to learn from and what I was going to learn, and getting out of that routine environment and getting right into the workforce and learning so much from some people like Michael, people like Devin, our CEO and CTO, versus having to go 3 years more into school and learning from textbooks. So that's how I got into sales. And from there, I've just grown pretty significantly. So I was an SDR for about 6 months, and then I moved into a business development role. And at Vidyard, SDR is an inbound focused role. So they answer all the inbound requests, our phone, our chat, any MQLs that come in. And then BDR is completely outbound. So I saw a pain with where our pipeline was coming from, and it was only focused on our inbound MQLs from outside of our customer base. But there's so much untapped pipeline within our customer base, knowing that we have large enterprise customers and a single use case in those enterprise customers. How can we expand that out and get cross sells or upsells within our customer base? So more pipeline from that area that we already are on their paperwork for, we're already a chosen vendor for. So I helped build out that program as a BDR, spent some time in that, and then moved into an account executive role. From there, I was an account executive for our new SMB team. So we were the guinea pigs at the time, where we were working with companies in 0 to 50 million in revenue. And from there, we grew the team significantly. We were only 4, and now the team's like the size of 10, I think, across Kitchener and our Vancouver offices. And then I moved into the BDR manager role now, where I manage a team of 8 completely outbound reps who are going outbound in SMB and large enterprise, into our support use case, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my journey so far.
That's an incredible amount of success from what you call an accidental beginning. And, I love the word chaos, because I think it describes life, but it also describes a lot of what goes on at startups and being in sales. And I find that a lot of people that are just drawn to that vocation thrive under chaos. And I love being around people who are like that. What advice do you have for those who think that they cannot pursue sales in a certain background because they don't have a business background, or they don't have any experience or technical knowledge in the field that they'd be selling into?
I think as now a hiring manager, I don't really pay attention to where people go to school and what degree they get. I care more about what they did to set themselves apart. Did they do any internships? Did they do any co-ops? Did they volunteer anywhere? What kind of jobs did they pursue, and what did they learn? Even if they were a waitress or waiter, what did they learn? What kind of things did they build? Did they go from a floor, someone just working the floor, to a team lead, to the floor manager? Did they move up? Did they show skills, and did they develop skills over time? And I think people need to shy away from, I don't have background in this, or I don't have the skill set, or I don't have business knowledge. As a science student, I had 0 business knowledge whatsoever. I could tell you all about your mind and your body, but when it comes to B2B, nothing. And then I took it upon myself to start learning it as an SDR. And it was a great role to be able to learn it, because you get coaching from the people around you, but you get to talk to different businesses every single day, where you get to learn so much about them, and then be able to use that information when you're talking to the next person and the next person. So people should not shy away based on their background. And again, I don't look at that information. It's great to see you went to school, but I care about what you did to set yourself apart.
This series is all about giving people reassurance and the "I've been there too" sentiments. So thank you for that. How do you think your science background has influenced the way that you approach sales when it comes to interacting with prospects and partners, but also in terms of building out a process, which, has its own bit of kind of a scientific methodology and fun to that as well?
Yeah, it's I really value David Premier's series on cerebral selling, because from an engineering background, he's really just showed that sales is a process. And I think when I started out, it was pretty much a process for me too, and trying to uncover what is the process of what you do when you get to an MQL to get to that booked meeting, to get to that pipeline qualified opportunity, that's your quota number, and how do you get to that afterwards when I move to AE to a closed deal. And it's like, what are the things that I need to do? What are the pieces of information I need to collect? What are the pieces of information I need to give? And being able to jot those things down. So, for example, what was important for me is exactly that, being able to know what to share, what to give, what to collect, and be able to get that information at each stage of the sales cycle. I think my science background really helps me with research, given that I had to do research papers all the time, thesis papers all the time, being able to do research, come to a theory, test the theory, trial and error it, and then come to a conclusion and being able to say this works or this doesn't work. I still do that now that I manage a team. And I think about what are things that we can change to increase our efficiency? What are things that we can do to increase how many meetings we can book? How many of those meetings actually convert into pipeline? And trial and erroring different things to see what's an effective thing to add to our toolkit versus what's something we should not be having in our toolkit anymore because it's not working. So that background was super helpful just to build out a process. And then also working with as a support worker, you have to know how to build a relationship really quick because either this person trusts you or they just don't trust you at all. And it can get pretty serious at that point. So being able to pick up on body language is really easily by using Zoom video calls like this, seeing little nuances of people and how they react to things like when you quote pricing or when you showcase a demo and it tries to align with their pain points, and you can see when it really does or when it really doesn't. So being able to pick up and challenge people based on that behaviors that they show non-verbally was super helpful as well.
Sales can have, such a wide range of emotional kind of effects on you with the highs and the lows. I
Yep.
wonder because, I am not somebody with a science background, but I wonder if, you find yourself a little bit more removed from that because you see things as trial and error, testing out a hypothesis, supporting it or refuting it, or do you think that you're equally as affected by it by the rest of us, and just maybe with experience and learning and growing, you've come to a place where you have that objective view?
I can definitely say I've emotionally been impacted by sales too. And I've experienced highs and lows like everyone else, but
Thank God, that's reassuring.
but when it does come to that, I think the important thing that I've realized is you need to keep trialing and erroring. You need to keep pushing. Um, Things like Salesforce tells you how many calls you're making to convert into a new meeting, which will convert into a new opportunity, and how many opportunities you need and what your close rate is. So it all comes down to the numbers, and you can reassure yourself that you're putting in the right amount of work, the right quality of work, and it will pay off. So that's how you can get yourself out of that slump. And that's how I got myself out of the slump, with more of a scientific approach of just analyzing the numbers, looking at the data and seeing if I'm doing all the right things. Am I putting in all the things that I can do that I know I can control? And the rest is up to the other person on the other end if they're going to sign that paperwork or not. And what can I do that's in my control and my reach to empower them to do that?
Right. I was actually, just thinking the other day in terms of just how far I feel I've personally come in terms of the types of conversations that I've been able to have. I remember, previously when I first started, if somebody was really pushy with me and wanted to get straight to the demo and not take time to do a bit of discovery and qualifying beforehand, I would get so nervous about it. And now it's like it's something that I can just easily navigate towards, and I can set the conversation in that way. And I think what I've learned is kind of appreciating that these learning experiences have come with each individual call, and it's just one call at a time, and that gets me to where I want to be, because the little bits and pieces in between, and I guess taking pride in those things, are going to get me to where I
Yeah,
want to be, rather than worrying too much about, because the outcome will happen as long as the process is there and as long as I'm trialing and erroring, as you say.
exactly. And you brought up a good point. It's all about the little wins too. Yes, you might not have closed that deal, but maybe you expanded that deal to a bigger dollar amount. Maybe you got a different team interested in on board. And yes, you were able to build out more of an interest of Vidyard or Close.io inside of a company that maybe you only started a single use case in. It's just like those little accomplishments that maybe right now they're not going to pay off, but maybe in the future when that business is ready to sign off, you'll get a bigger deal out of it versus what you started off with. If you didn't put in that work, who
Mhm.
knows?
Exactly. And as you mentioned, like, we are all definitely very affected, by sales emotionally. But when you take a step back and look at those individual little calls and data points and, epiphanies that you've established, it's like, I've become somebody that's really leveled up, and the
Yeah.
person that can handle.
Yeah. And now coaching a team of 8 reps, we use a tool called Chorus where I listen to their calls every single week and leave feedback. But even seeing when they take feedback that you give them the week before and apply it, just like how it opens up the conversation more, how it books a meeting quicker, how it gets people interested in wanting to talking, just those little improvements help go a long way. So if you think about it across your entire sales process, how you can do a little bit of an improvement in all aspects, it'll just go that much more further when it comes to closing that actual deal.
Right. I think there is nothing more compelling to building somebody's confidence by giving them the tools that they need or making a suggestion to them, have them actually execute on it. And
Mhm.
then once they see the win, it's like you didn't have to do anything to show them because they show themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think was the biggest learning during your time as a direct support professional at the Kitchener Waterloo Habilitation? And what were some of the things that you would use to maybe read verbal cues? How were you able to establish trust in these situations? I mean, I'm super interested in the trust piece because I think that's so interesting what you said about, how, that kind of can be the make or break in terms of whether or not you can actually help them.
Yeah. I I had some interesting times there with a lot of the people I supported and made such great relationships with some of these folks that I see them around the downtown area and I can still go up to them and give them a hug and they remember who I am even though I haven't seen them in years. But
Oh,
it took a lot of time to get there. When you first start out, I'm supporting people who are 50, 60, 70 years old. They see this 18-year-old kid coming through their door trying to tell them what to do and try to get them to do their daily routine and get them to execute on it. It's like, whoa, who are you? Why are you telling me what to do? You're a kid, get out of my house kind of thing. There was resistance. So building that trust is really difficult because each and every person was so unique in their behavior and their personality and their traits in general. So being able to quickly identify things like what do they like to do and having like quick nuances of like what shows do they like to watch, what do they like to do on their days off, what kind of routine do they usually follow, what do they like from that routine, what do they not like from that routine, and reading that from their body language of like their resistancy to do those things. Like some people love going on walks, some people absolutely hate it, so they dreaded that part of the day where they would just take so much longer to put on their shoes, put on their coat, and you can sense that. So when you're on walks with them, you like try to make it more enjoyable, bring up things that they enjoy to do within those walks to build up conversation, to build up trust, to build up a relationship with them. So little things like that helped me go a long way early on. And then when it came down to the harder situations, when personalities were very high and things were not going so well, if someone was having a bad day, being able to pick up on those little cues that I picked up on before when I noticed that they didn't like to do something. And noticing that pattern really helps diffuse situations from escalating and getting a little bit more dangerous than they need to, or for that individual, really helps me to be able to support them right away. So I know when I was earlier on, there was someone that we supported who had very strong behaviors that got very violent over time, if not diffused really early on when you start noticing them. And it did. And I was the only person around. And it was like my third week. And it was super scary, but I had to just like get onto it and just control and diffuse the situation as quickly as possible before someone got hurt. And it's scary to think about that now going back, but it's like the things that I learned from that is how do I just take charge when I see something and just attack it head on? How do I pick up these little nuances when I'm on customer calls, when I'm working with one of my reps to see what's ticking them off, what's bothering them, what do they enjoy, and how can I really emphasize the importance of things and diffuse things head on when they come at me.
right. I would love to highlight that, I believe salespeople are, the best salespeople are the ultimate service minded individuals. And I think that you're an exemplar of that because, you've actually done that in a context that was outside of sales and directly supporting people,
Mhm.
and observing them, to an extent also dealing with conflict resolution. And this is so evident throughout your career in all of the positions that you've done before you joined Vidyard. Community is such a huge theme in your career and just who you are, and that I believe makes you the type of salesperson that you are. What do you think drives that desire to support other people, to be a part of the community? As mentioned, you're also the GM for the Toronto Enterprise Sales Forum chapter, and to you, what makes it so rewarding?
I think it is just that it's making an impact on people, whether it was like in the direct support role where someone was just walking a little faster that day, or someone was climbing steps quicker that day, or someone just was able to get out of bed quicker that day because they were excited to be out of bed. Whether it was, taking someone from a bad day to a good day on a more higher scale, or even here in this role, being able to help a customer solve a pain point. being able to see the rewards that they reap out of an investment like something like Vidyard, being able to see they generated 1,000 more leads that month. They were going to lose their job if they didn't hit that number. And now they've accomplished that goal. Now they're the hero, a part of their organization. So seeing the rewards and the outcomes from that is what keeps me wanting to help people more. And now in this role where I'm supporting 8 new BDRs who are new grads right out of school trying to figure out where they're trying to go in their life, it's really rewarding to see someone's conversion rate increase from something as small as that or getting promoted to their next role, something as large as that. And the community stuff was definitely something that stemmed really early on in my life, from volunteering all the way from elementary school to end of university, continuing to volunteer outside of work, and also starting volunteer initiatives at Vidyard. It's because there are so many people that need help or support in some way or another, and we can do even just a little bit to help give back and make someone's day that much easier. And it's something that we can all take pride and value in doing it, because it not only makes a difference for them, but deep down you learn so much too.
What do you try to, teach or maybe coach the sales reps on your team when it comes to adopting that type of mindset? Because that's really the solution selling manifesto is, when your client wins, you win as well, and you're just trying to get to that moment of just joy, and it's shared between the two of you. How do you get people to see that and maybe not be so bogged down in terms of the worries of the day to day or the stresses that can inevitably come with this occupation?
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is in our messaging, to what we talk about with our prospects, to how we talk to our BDRs internally about their role in specific. BDR is a grind. It is a very hard job, and kudos to every single BDR out there, because I was in your shoes, and now I'm managing 8 of them, and I see the difficulties in the role, and it's daunting. You have to do a lot of activities to get to where you need to be, and you got to do it every single day. You got to stay on top of your stuff, and it's a roller coaster all the time. But I think the messaging that really resonates with our team here, and what I want every BDR to know, is you're the reason why the lights are on in the office. Because if that pipeline doesn't come, the account executives can't close and hit their revenue goals, the company's not going to grow. So just bringing it back to that big picture, like you being here and doing this and hitting your numbers is how this company is growing. It might not feel that way some days, but it is the truth. And if you can't do it, we can't grow. And then when it comes to how we help our customers, we really follow the selling with noble purpose mentality through Lisa McLeod. She actually came to our sales kickoff and helped coach our entire sales team to think about the customer first. And the big question was, how will our customers be different after adopting Vidyard? So now every single time we're in our one-on-ones talking about new accounts they're working or new messaging, we bring up the fact of, how is this helping the customer? What is this solution going to do to make the customer better, make their lives easier, make them hit their numbers, make them generate more revenue? How is this going to help them? And we make them think about that first and their quota after.
That's amazing. And thank you so much for, I guess, putting out that encouragement to people that need to hear that, because, sometimes it can feel like being a quota carrier is a ton of pressure, but it's, the pressure is a privilege. To be able to have that much pressure means that you're at a certain level where you're valued, and people rely on you because you're capable and you matter, and you can impact at your company, and you can make an impact in the lives of your clients, and the benefits that they're going to get from the solution that you're about to set up for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I hope every single BDR sees that in themselves, even on the hard days, because it is the number one way to get yourself out of the slump. It's something I told myself every single day when I was in a slump as a BDR or an SDR, even as a closing rep. It's so important to know that you are valued, and there's a reason why you are in this seat, and there's a reason why people see you as valuable in this seat. So keep that top of mind always.
I love that you were essentially backing yourself, because sometimes that's what you need to do, is that no matter what you say to yourself, I'm going to have my back, even if I didn't have a great call, or even if, the quarter isn't going so well for me. Like, I am doing this because I am making an impact, and I'm going to be my own cheerleader or my best friend, or, my biggest endorser.
And it's awesome to see in a small company, right? Like, you can see the impact you make. You close a deal, the entire company celebrates because you helped close a deal that added to our revenue. You added to our growth. Versus bigger companies, you don't really see that all the time. You're just another drop in the ocean. But that's why joining a startup was so impactful for me, because everything that I did, whether it was book a new meeting for an AE who then closed that deal, or creating a whole ton of pipeline, or finding that customer segment as a pain point where we could find pipeline, it all made an impact at the end of the day to the business. And every single rep that's here makes an impact every day. And I'm sure that's the same at Close.io.
Yes. And for that reason, I think that sales is such an attractive career choice for women, but not just women, for everybody. And more than that, I think that there's something so unique about starting your career in sales early at a startup and almost growing up with the startup. So as your startup, scales, you as an individual are growing, and so is your sales acumen. And I totally relate to the feeling of, when you close a major account or you've hit your target, like the win is not just yours, it's the entire team's, and that ownership and that pride is something that is so special and worth the chaos that comes with startup sales.
Yep, absolutely.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that I haven't asked you about or that we haven't spoken about that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Ooh, Toronto Enterprise Sales Forum. It is a community. We have chapters all across the US, 2 chapters in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver, and some across EMEA and APAC. And it's a community to get involved in if you want to learn more about improving your sales skills, whether it's better negotiation tactics, better prospecting tactics, meeting new people, networking and building your sales network, and just being able to go to a community of folks afterwards and being able to ask questions and get feedback. So I highly recommend everyone taking a look at their local chapters, seeing what events are coming up, and actually attending them to see if this is something that adds value to their jobs every single day. Because we cover some pretty unique topics, and we have some awesome speakers that come in monthly.
Excellent. And where can people find you and connect with you?
LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. That's more my professional network, but I do have Twitter. And if you want to see tweets on The Bachelorette, Cardi B, and Netflix, then you can find me there at Bindra Shikha is my handle on Twitter.
Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Hey, did you enjoy this episode? I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. If you have questions that you'd like our guests to answer, or if you know of a woman in sales that we should feature, email me, Rebecca@close.io. That's with 1 B and 2 C's. And if you enjoyed this episode, got value out of it, got inspired, share it with a friend. There's a link in the description where you can also find show notes. And you can follow this series by subscribing to Close.io's YouTube channel, iTunes, SoundCloud, and various other podcast apps that you might already use. See you guys on the next one.